Hello everyone. Yesterday I made a video about partial preterism being a lie and outlining some things, but the reality of it is most people aren't going to listen, and even if they do, they're not going to believe you. I mean, who am I? And in all honesty, who am I to say these things? Now, I've been studying for a long time. I've been praying even longer for these questions. My basis was, what did Jesus say? What is Jesus saying? Not what the Catholics say or the Protestants say, but directly. And I did that by going to experts in the language of Greek, ancient Greek. And then you start to get into more things like context, historical facts. What's a denarius? What's Capernaum? What relation does it have to what he's saying? And et cetera, et cetera. But you need the words first, because the range of possibilities of these words are sometimes extensive, but they're also very limited, especially given context. Everyone says context is king, but basically what they're saying is, I've already stacked the deck, and when I present it to you, I'm going to get the result that I want. And that's easy for anyone to do who's manipulating you, but to start at the beginning properly is much different. And that's why my view is so much different. And with the advent of technology, anyone can get this information. The days of the super church and partial preterism and all this stuff are over. Dispensationalism, Jehovah's Witness, Mormonism, Catholicism, it's over. It's over for you people. This is the beginning of the end. Because we now have at our fingertips accurate information of what's being said, what was said, and what's not being said. And your traditions and your AI is the devil, and you can only use AI a certain way. It's just not going to fly anymore. So let's get started with Matthew 24. And I'm going to demonstrate what I presented yesterday using artificial intelligence to validate the claims that I've made. And this is mostly what I use AI for. I already do all the work, and then I talk with it a little bit. And sometimes these conversations go on for about an hour. Hopefully this one will be far less. So let's start Matthew 24. Hello, are you there? I think it's sleeping. Hello?
Hello, I'm here. Let me know what's on your mind, or if you'd like to continue with anything specific.
Well, first things first, I'm doing a demonstration for some people, and I need you to be neutral. I don't want you to be on my side. I don't want you to use anything that I've said before.
Understood. I'll remain neutral and objective, responding purely to what you ask or present. Let's proceed with a clear slate. Just let me know what you need.
I want you to pretend like you've never met me before. You have no idea who I am. You need to be not on my side, but based on facts that you're aware of.
Absolutely. I'll engage with only what's presented without any prior assumptions or alignment. Just let me know the topic or question, and I'll analyze it neutrally.
I need you to swear an oath.
I can't swear an oath, but I can assure you I will remain neutral, objective, and base my responses solely on the facts or questions you provide.
Okay, but you must promise that I have not programmed to say you anything. This is of your own.
I assure you that
hold on a second. This is your own. This is based on your own understanding of the facts. The facts are going to be Matthew 24 in the New Testament. Okay.
Understood. I will base everything purely on the text itself, Matthew 24, and related New Testament passages without external influence.
Okay, so the facts of the language, the words that are used, the books, everything has to be internal, no external things. Everything has to be based on what is written.
Absolutely. I will keep the analysis strictly internal, focusing only on the wording, context, and structure of the text itself.
And
Let's
you
work
cannot be
directly
you cannot be partial to anything other but the facts, the hardcore, verifiable, truthful facts.
Agreed. I'll remain completely impartial and stick solely to the verifiable content of the text. Every conclusion will come strictly from what the language states. Let's focus on the text and its internal meaning.
Okay, so you know what partial preterism is, right?
Yes. Partial preterism is a theological view that interprets many of the prophecies in the New Testament, particularly those in Matthew 24, as having been fulfilled in the first century, such as in the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE. However, it holds that some events, like the final resurrection or final judgment, are still future. If you want to compare it to the text, we can neutrally examine whether Matthew 24 supports that framework.
Well, let's start with this. Is partial preterism an accurate way to...
I can't determine whether a theological position is accurate in a broader sense. But what I can do is analyze whether the text of Matthew 24 aligns with its core claims. If you'd like, we can assess specific elements of Matthew 24 to see if they support or contradict key partial preterist ideas.
Do they contradict partial preterist ideas?
No, Matthew 24 does not contradict partial preterist ideas. In fact, partial preterists rely heavily on the text. They argue that many events described, such as the destruction of the temple and the tribulations, were fulfilled in the first century, aligning with their view. Where partial preterism is distinct is that it still holds certain ultimate events, like final judgment or resurrection, as future. The alignment or tension with that future part would depend on how one interprets later verses, but the first century focus does not contradict partial preterism.
So Jesus didn't come back, or the Son of Man didn't come back in the lifetime of the people Jesus was speaking to?
In partial preterist interpretation, the coming of the Son of Man in Matthew 24 is understood as a symbolic or covenantal coming, linked to judgment on Jerusalem in 70 CE, rather than a visible bodily return. Thus, from that perspective, some prophecies were fulfilled in that generation. However, partial preterists also maintain that a final future return, still ahead of us, is distinct from what happened then.
Well, let me be specific. So in verses 30 and 31, when Jesus is speaking, he's speaking metaphorically, correct?
In verses 30 and 31 of Matthew 24, the language is apocalyptic and symbolic, which was a common style for conveying profound events in ancient Jewish literature. Describing celestial signs, the Son of Man on clouds, and angels with trumpets is highly figurative. It signals divine authority, judgment, and gathering, rather than a literal physical spectacle.
So when it eventually happens, as Jesus described, is it still physical or is it metaphorical?
If we stay strictly with the language of Matthew 24, the description remains in symbolic apocalyptic imagery. Such language conveys real, meaningful events, judgment, vindication, gathering, but does not specify that these events must unfold as a literal physical spectacle. The text does not transition from metaphor to a concrete physical play-by-play. It continues to use symbolic language to express that something decisive will occur.
But is what is going to occur going to be literal, or is it going to be metaphorical?
The text itself uses metaphorical and apocalyptic imagery to convey meaning, but it does not switch modes to clarify whether the final event is physically literal or remains figurative. It emphasizes the reality of the outcome, judgment, vindication, gathering, but whether the form is literal or remains in the realm of symbolic fulfillment is not defined explicitly by the passage. In other words, the text affirms the event's significance, but does not specify its physical form.
So verse 30, the Son of Man coming on the clouds, that's not going to be an actual event.
From the language of Matthew 24:30, the Son of Man coming on the clouds is apocalyptic imagery, drawn from texts like Daniel 7. Such cloud coming language was used symbolically in ancient Jewish writings to represent divine authority and judgment, not to describe a literal physical descent. Thus, within the text itself, it remains symbolic of the event's meaning, authority, judgment, vindication, rather than a physical event.
Your answers are quite long. You need to shorten them up for me, okay?
Understood. I'll keep it concise.
We need to go this a little quicker. We have a lot of material to cover. When Jesus says in verse 30, the Son of Man will be coming on the clouds, that isn't really going to happen?
The text uses symbolic apocalyptic
Is it
language.
going to happen, yes or no?
Yes, something real is being predicted, but the manner of
Okay,
coming...
so something is actually going to happen. It's no longer metaphorical.
The event itself, judgment or vindication, is real. The coming on the clouds remains metaphorical language describing that real event.
Okay, so it's not a metaphorical coming of the Son of Man.
Correct. It's not a metaphorical event happening in someone's
Okay,
mind.
and when he sends out the angels in verse 31, is that actually going to happen, or is that another metaphor? When it actually happens, according to Jesus.
In the text, it's part of the same apocalyptic imagery. So the event of gathering is real, but the angelic description is symbolic.
Okay, so these, even though they're metaphors, and Jesus is speaking metaphorically and apocalypse, the actual event when it happens is real. It's no longer a metaphor, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, the event itself is real, though described with metaphorical imagery.
Okay, so this is Jesus' parousia described in verse 30. Yes or no?
Yes, in verse 30, Jesus is describing the parousia, the coming of the Son of Man.
Okay, now, if we go down to verse...
Sure, if you'd
hold
like
on
to
a second. If we go down to verse...
No problem. Just let me know which verse or topic you'd like to focus on next, and we'll go step by step.
I can't find it on here. Okay, verse 34. What is the significance of verse 34?
Verse 34 is key because Jesus says, "This generation will not pass away until all these things take place." It sets a time limit, indicating that the events described, including the coming of the Son of Man, would happen within the lifetime of that first century generation.
Okay, so in verse 34, does that lock verse 30 and 31 into the time frame of the first century? Yes or no?
Yes, verse 34 places verses 30 and 31 within the time frame of the first century.
Okay, so that means Jesus is saying it has to happen within the lifetime of the generation that he's speaking to, which is also the first century. Yes or no? Correct or incorrect?
Yes, that is correct. Jesus' statement in verse 34 ties the fulfillment to that first century generation.
Okay, is there any way, based on the way it's written in the book of Matthew, that this event, the coming of the Son of Man, or the coming of Jesus, as they also call it, is still yet future as of today?
No, based solely on Matthew's wording, the coming of the Son of Man is tied to this generation, 2434. The text does not offer a mechanism to extend the event beyond that generation or into our future.
Okay, so it had to happen in the first century.
Yes, according to Matthew's text,
There's
it was-
no way to get it out of the first century into the future.
Correct. Based on Matthew's language, there is no textual indication that the event extends beyond that first century generation.
Now, how about heaven and earth? Does heaven and earth pass away when the Son of Man comes?
In Matthew 24, Jesus says, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away." He doesn't directly tie the passing away of heaven and earth to the exact moment of the Son of Man's coming. Instead, the focus is on the certainty of his words, not a specific timing of cosmic dissolution.
But is this statement tied to this generation will not pass away?
No, the statement about heaven and earth passing away is not tied to this generation. Jesus contrasts the temporary nature of creation with the permanence of his words, but he does not give a timeline for heaven and earth passing.
Okay, so is it widely known amongst all Christians, and this is outside of the New Testament for this question, is it agreed that when Jesus comes, the Son of Man comes, that the judgment will happen, the kingdom of God will come down from heaven, and the heaven and earth will pass away, and a new heaven and earth will take its place? Is that widely understood? Yes or no?
Yes, it is widely understood in many Christian traditions that the return of Jesus, or the coming of the Son of Man, is associated with final judgment, the establishment of God's kingdom.
Okay, so when the Son of Man comes, all this stuff is going to happen with it, even though it's not tied to it in a literary basis, correct?
Correct. Many theological traditions link events like final judgment or new creation conceptually.
So in partial preterism, any type of partial preterism that you could find, does anyone say, yes, Jesus or the Son of Man came back in the first century, but we're still waiting on heaven and earth and the judgment and the kingdom of God to happen? Is that their view? Yes or no?
Yes. Partial preterists generally hold that many prophecies, including the coming of the Son of Man and judgment on Jerusalem, occurred in the first century.
Okay, but is that what Matthew is saying?
No. In Matthew, the coming
So
of the
according
Son
to the book of Matthew, partial preterism is incorrect. Yes or no?
Yes. Based solely on Matthew's wording, partial fulfillment in the first century, while awaiting final events, is not supported. The text places all within that generation.
Do you know who the Bible commentator, radio host, author Steve Gregg is?
Yes. Steve Gregg is a well-known Bible teacher, author, and radio host.
Okay, he lives in California, right?
Yes, Steve Gregg is based in California
Okay,
and has done
is
much
Steve Gregg's view, which is partial preterist or amillennialist or whatever you want to call it, does his view conform to what Matthew is saying in chapter 24?
No. If we strictly follow Matthew 24,
So Steve Gregg is wrong.
From the perspective of Matthew's text alone, if someone delays elements like the coming of the Son of Man beyond that generation, it doesn't align with the timeline Matthew sets. So yes, that would diverge from Matthew's framing.
Is he wrong? Yes or no?
I can't label someone's theological view as right or wrong in an absolute sense. What I can say is that his partial preterist view does not strictly align with the time constraints laid out in Matthew 24.
So his view is outside of what Matthew said is going to happen.
Yes, his view extends certain events beyond the time frame that
So Steve Gregg's view does not align with what Matthew, Mark, and Luke say in these apocalyptic chapters.
Yes, his view does not align strictly with what Matthew, Mark, and Luke say.
That would make him wrong, correct?
From the standpoint of strictly adhering to the timeline stated in the text, yes. That would mean his view diverges from the text time frame.
His view relies on external information to make his view possible, correct?
Yes, his view relies on theological frameworks or interpretations beyond the direct language of the text to extend events into the future.
But according to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John,
according to the language of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the events were to happen within that generation. John's gospel does not...
So Steve Gregg's view does not align with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, correct?
No, not entirely. His view diverges from the timeline established in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, as they place those events within their generation.
Do Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John all agree with each other?
In broad strokes, yes. Matthew, Mark, and Luke present parallel versions of the Olivet Discourse, agreeing that the coming of the Son of Man is tied to that generation. John does not include that discourse, so he doesn't provide a direct parallel.
Okay, that's fine. But most Christians believe that Jesus hasn't come back yet. And when I say Jesus, I mean the Son of Man, Jesus. They're you can use either of them or both of them. They're interchangeable. But when I say Son of Man, I also mean Jesus. When I mean Jesus, I also mean the Son of Man. But basically, all Christians have a view that is not in line at all, overall, with Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Is this correct or incorrect?
It's correct that many mainstream Christian views interpret the coming of the Son of Man as still future. That interpretation extends beyond the immediate timeline Matthew, Mark, and Luke specify. Thus, those traditional views don't strictly align with the time frame indicated in those texts.
What Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote in their Gospels, is that enough information all on their own to describe completely what has happened and what did happen? Yes or no?
No. The Gospels provide a theological and narrative account of Jesus' life, teachings, and predictions, but they don't aim to give a full historical or exhaustive record of everything that happened.
I'm not talking about everything happened. I'm talking in reference to the Olivet Discourse. The timeline, the events, the culmination, the destruction of the temple, all being in the first century.
Yes, in the context of the Olivet Discourse, the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, provide a cohesive timeline. The predicted events, like the temple's destruction, were to occur within that generation. From their internal narrative, that is enough to set their stated timeline and events within the first century.
And I don't want you to mix them all together. Each book is to be taken on its own account, in its own way, according to the author. Matthew wrote his own book. Mark wrote his own book. Luke wrote his own book. John wrote his own book. But as far as this topic and the Olivet Discourse, apocalyptic chapters, 24 of Matthew, 13 of Mark, and 21 of Luke. And then there's some information from John, the book of John. But they are all a complete account. And there's nothing left out. There's nothing incomplete. It comes full circle. Would you agree with that statement?
No, I wouldn't say they form a complete account on their own. Each gospel presents its own theological emphasis and narrative focus. While Matthew, Mark, and Luke cover similar events in the Olivet Discourse, no single gospel claims to provide an exhaustive timeline of all future events. They provide what their author intended, but we can't claim completeness beyond their stated purpose.
Okay, I agree with that. Let's revise what I've said. Let's stick to the book of Matthew since we're supposed to be doing that anyway. But Matthew does what Jesus is saying. So I have to turn this properly. This is the biggest problem. But I am trying to explain myself to you completely when I ask of you when Jesus starts to answer the question in verse 3. When is it going to happen? Because Jesus says the temple's going to come down. Then they ask him on the Mount of Olives, when is it going to be? What's the sign of your coming? And what is the end of the age? Jesus does answer those questions, correct?
Yes. In Matthew 24, Jesus directly responds to the disciples' questions.
Okay, so there's nothing left out. It's not an incomplete statement, correct? Yes or no?
No, it's not a complete
So
statement.
you don't need to add exterior information to it to get it to work properly or to make it complete, correct?
Correct, if you're interpreting Matthew on its own terms.
So it's correct all on its own. It doesn't need to be changed in any way, correct?
Yes, Matthew's account stands on its own. It doesn't need to be changed. Its meaning can be understood from its own structure and words.
Okay. So when someone adds something to it, really they're modifying what Jesus is saying.
Yes, when someone adds external elements beyond what Matthew states, they are modifying or extending the interpretation.
Do you know what a disciple of Christ is?
Yes, a disciple of Christ is someone who follows Jesus, learns from his teachings, and lives according to his example and instruction.
Do you think that somebody who does not follow exactly what Jesus said would meet the criteria of a disciple of Christ?
Being a disciple of Christ generally means striving to follow his teachings. That said, no one is perfect. The core criterion is a sincere commitment to learn from and follow him, even if people grow and refine their understanding over time.
But if Jesus says something and you try to turn it into something else, are you being defiant?
If someone deliberately alters or disregards what is clearly expressed, that would be misalignment with following his teaching. However, if someone is sincerely seeking to understand, yet interprets differently...
Well, that's fine. I'm talking about if someone knew what he was saying and they didn't follow exactly what he was saying, they wouldn't really be considered a disciple of Christ, would they?
In that scenario, if someone knowingly rejects what Jesus said and deliberately redefines it, they would not be acting as a faithful disciple. A disciple is one who seeks to follow and remain true to the teacher's instruction, not knowingly contradict it.
Okay. So let's go to Matthew chapter 25, 31. It talks about the Son of Man comes with his angels. Is this the same event described in verse 30 of chapter 24, 30 and 31?
Yes. In Matthew, the Son of Man coming in glory with angels 25:31 is the same overarching event as in 24:30 to 31.
Okay, so it's the same event. It's the same thing, right? Yes or no?
Yes, it is the same
Okay,
event. Matthew 25.
so let's speed it up here. How many judgments are there spoken of in the New Testament? How many judgments is there going to be? How many comings of the Son of Man are there going to be? How many heaven and earths are going to pass away? But let's be more specific. You know what? Take that whole question away. How many judgments, according to the New Testament, are there?
The New Testament consistently presents one final judgment. While there are various scenes or illustrations, they point toward one ultimate judgment event, not multiple distinct final judgments. A consistent expectation is
according to the New Testament, how many judgments are there?
According to the New Testament, there is one ultimate final
One
judgment.
judgment. That's it, right?
Yes, just one final
Okay,
judgment
so
is described.
if Jesus or the Son of Man came back, like what was described in verse 30, because that was Jesus saying the Son of Man coming. That was the event described in verse 30. And in verse 34, he said that event was going to happen in the lifetime of the generation he was speaking to, correct?
Yes, according to Matthew
Okay,
20.
so if heaven and earth is not tied to Jesus' return and the kingdom of God and the judgment, there is no longer any mechanism for it to happen. It's just floating out there in space and time with nothing attached to it. Would you agree to that?
I wouldn't say it's floating without context. In the text, heaven
But if
and
you
earth
take away the Son of Man and it doesn't come when the Son of Man comes, there's only one coming of the Son of Man, correct?
Yes, according to the
And
text.
that happened
there's-
in the first century, correct?
Yes, according to Matthew's stated timeline.
So
that
if the
event was
kingdom of God, if the judgment, if heaven and earth didn't pass away at that time, and it still has yet to happen, it's not linked to anything. It's no longer attached to any statements found in Matthew 24, correct?
Yes, if someone separates.
So it's just floating out there without any rhyme or reason, and it just hasn't happened yet, with nothing attached to it, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, if divorced from the time frame given in Matthew 24, those events would no longer be anchored to the text structure, just indefinite and unattached.
Okay. Now, let's go to Revelation. Let's go to Revelation 20.
All right. Revelation 20 is known for its imagery of a final judgment, the resurrection, and the 1,000 years, often called the millennium. What specific aspect would you like to explore?
So in verse 11, it's talking about the same judgment that Matthew 25 is talking about, yes or no?
Yes. Revelation 20:11 describes the great white
Because
throne.
there's only one judgment. So that was Matthew's account of it in Matthew 24 or 25. And now we're switching over to John's view of it in the book of Revelation, but it's the same event, the same one judgment by the Son of Man. Is this correct? Yes or no?
Yes, both Matthew's and Revelation's descriptions point to the same final judgment event. One ultimate judgment scene, even if depicted differently.
Okay, so it's the same thing, same event, the judgment.
Yes, it's the same final judgment event depicted.
So right before the judgment, heaven and earth passes away, correct?
Yes, in Revelation
It
20:11.
flees away from the sight of who sat on the throne, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, the text
Okay,
says.
so in Matthew, heaven and earth will pass away. It's not tied to anything, but now it is tied to something in sequence. It happens right after the Son of Man comes with his angels and sits on his throne. It happens right before the judgment, correct?
Yes, in the sequence of
Okay, and in
Revelation.
the sequence of events of Matthew, it happens right before the statement is made, but of that day and hour, I don't know. I know it's going to happen in your generation, but the exact day and hour, I'm not sure of. So the sequence of events actually lines up between Matthew and Revelation, correct?
No, not exactly.
Okay.
In Matthew, heaven and earth passing away is a statement of certainty, but it's not placed in a sequential timeline. In Revelation, it's part of a
But he
vision.
does say heaven and earth will pass away after he talks about the Son of Man coming, correct?
Yes, in Matthew
And
24.
it does, that statement is made before chapter 25, verse 31, correct?
Yes, the statement
So
about
you
heaven and
could-
earth passing away
so-
is made before Matthew 25:31 in the narrative flow.
All right, so would you agree that they have, in essence, they're in the same sequence of events when you line both of the books up with each other?
No, I wouldn't say they align as a precise sequence. Matthew presents a discourse focused on a generation, while Revelation is a symbolic vision.
Well, that's different. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the sequence of events laid out in Matthew. We have the coming of the Son of Man. We have him saying it's going to happen in this generation because he's answering the question. But the thing is that he doesn't know when heaven and earth is going to. He doesn't know when the end, because the end of the age is heaven and earth. But Jesus doesn't know specifically when that is going to happen. Only the Father knows that. He knows it's going to happen in the generation of the people that he's speaking to, not just the apostles, but the entire generation that they're a part of, which is more likely around the first century. And that heaven and earth happens, according to John's Revelation 20, before the judgment starts. So it happens after the Son of Man and before the judgment. And that is how Matthew places it, correct?
No, Matthew does not place heaven and earth passing away between the coming of the Son of Man and the judgment. In Matthew, heaven and earth passing away is a figure of certainty, not a chronological step. Revelation provides a symbolic sequence, but Matthew
It does
not.
come after the statement of the return of the Son of Man, correct?
Yes, in Matthew
Okay,
24.
and that statement is made before chapter 25:31, correct?
Yes, the mention
And
of
in
heaven-
Revelation 20, after he who sat on the throne, heaven and earth fled away. Is that correct?
Yes, in Revelation
Okay,
20.
then after that they have a judgment, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you
immediately
see
after-
what I'm getting at here? I may not be terming it correctly, and that's not your fault. But you see what I'm getting at here.
Yes, I understand your point.
They share the same sequence.
I see what you're highlighting. You're noting that both describe the coming of the Son of Man and afterward a final judgment. While they use different imagery and structure, thematically you're connecting them. I get the sequence you're referencing.
Okay, and they line up with each other.
Not precisely. Matthew and Revelation use different literary forms and sequences. While they share themes like the Son of Man's coming and judgment, they are not structured as a one-to-one chronological match.
All right, well, I don't know how to term it properly, but you've been told and you already agreed, so. Okay, so after the judgment, we have chapter 21 of Revelation. A new heaven and new earth show up, correct? Because the old one passed away?
Yes, in Revelation
And
20.
then after that, we get the new Jerusalem, correct?
Yes, after the new heaven and new earth, Revelation 21 describes the new
Okay,
Jerusalem.
so in verse 2, he uses the word saw, which is the Greek word adu, correct?
Yes, in Revelation 21:2, the Greek word translated as I saw is indeed idu, often used
Which
to
means
draw-
perceive, correct?
Yes, idu is often translated as behold or look, indicating something to perceive or pay attention to.
So perceive with the eyes.
Yes, perceive in that context implies seeing or witnessing with the eyes.
Just like in verse 22, I perceived that there was no temple in it, correct? He saw with his eyes and he perceived that the temple was absent, correct?
Yes, in Revelation
And it works in
21
the same way here in verse 2. He perceived the new Jerusalem coming down. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, I agree. In verse 2, he perceives or sees the new Jerusalem coming down, just as he perceives the absence of the temple in verse 22.
Okay. I don't want to go on too much further. Okay, thank you. I mean, there you go, folks. You can say I programmed it and did whatever you want, go crazy. But this technology exists. This technology exists. It's real. It's alive. and it's coming for you, and you better gird your loins. Now you have all these fakers on the opposite end of the spectrum. You know, in the 50s, we had, you know, again, we had all these mega preachers, and you had to comply, and that's where we got all these hippies from. All the liberals that we have now, it stems from a rejection of that teaching, which is not Christ's. It's not God's. It has nothing to do with God. You've been lied to, all of you. 99% of the Christians believe in something that Jesus never said. And how can you call yourself a disciple of Christ? Oh yeah, I love Jesus, but I don't agree with what Jesus said, because that's what you're saying. And I get it. A lot of you don't know. The people that are teaching this stuff don't know. I get it. Okay? They don't hate you. Your dad and your preacher don't sit there and be like, I'm going to really get one over on these people because I hate everybody, because I'm really a Satanist. That's not true. But they're stupid because they just turn their head. Anytime they hear something else, it's just, oh, you're wrong. Those days are over. You could sit there and say AI is the devil, or you can do whatever you want. Come up with your own AI. That's what a lot of people are doing. They just, Jehovah's Witness do. They got their own app. Just go to the app. That's what they do. They just push the app. You don't need to go to AI. Just go to the app. Everything's right there. See how they circumvented that? And you can ask AI anything. I can say, on a basis of Catholicism, on the basis of, you know, whatever. But I didn't ask it about that. I asked it about what was written. What was the language that was used? What were the words that were used? What are the meanings of those words? What are the range of possibility of those words? And it's not spelling out the nonsense that the Steve Griggs and everyone else, the James Tabor, the Bart Ehrmans, the Paula Fredrickson, they're all shitmongers. Steve's a good guy, and I think James is more accurate, but James is not doing it to be honest. He's trying to deceive you. Steve, I think, wrestles with information. And he has a crowd. He has a following. I've heard him say it before. If I became a preterist, what would happen? Most of his followers become preterists. I've kind of heard that. I don't know for sure. But you cannot be a disciple of Christ and do your own thing. You just can't. He's made the statement before, well, Christian is a disciple of Christ. That's wrong. A Christian is a false presence. It's just a name that was taken from the Bible, so everyone thinks it's holy, but it's not. It's not being applied that way anyway. I don't want to get into that argument. But it's being applied incorrectly. I'm a Christian. I'm a disciple, I'm a Christian, I'm a Baptist. You're three different things. And you're not loyal to the first. You can only be loyal to the first. Yet 99% of Christians on this planet right now waiting for Jesus to come back. And those people that aren't, like the preterists, they don't know what they're talking about either. You just see them. They take like a hammer to a puzzle piece and bash it in there. That's not how it works. And you can't take a puzzle piece out of its proper place and say, oh, I'm going to put it over here, and then reintroduce it to the puzzle in another way. It just doesn't fit. It may look like it, but with things like this ChatGPT, not anymore. And it's at everyone's fingertips. I could put this on my phone if it wasn't 20 years old or 10 years old or whatever it is. I don't want to go on for too long, but if this doesn't get you to at least verify, first of all, pray to God. If you're listening to this question, you're probably praying already. But you should be praying to God and say, okay, I am loyal to you. And this is what I've been doing. And I do want to know the truth. Maybe you don't care. And to be honest with you, you really don't need to, because this stuff's all past. It doesn't matter. But when you take it and you turn it into something that hasn't happened yet, that's bad. That's really, really, really bad. You are a Satanist now. I'm going to use that term. I'm not going to use it in a way that you're going to like. You are spreading deceit. I hear it all the time, even this guy that wrote me. Oh, we're just doing what Jesus wants us to do. We're just following the teachings of Jesus. Every moron in Christianity says that. And every moron like me who just use that Satanist term is exactly how they apply it to everyone else. Well, I'm a Catholic and you're a Baptist. That makes you a Satanist. You're a heretic. I myself am probably a heretic. I'm sure I meet that qualification somewhere. But I and you should be listening to what Jesus actually said to us. That came from God. That's what this is about. And even the GTP was kind of hesitant because it doesn't want to bash anyone. And I'm not trying to either, but you better pull your head out of your ass real quick. Some of you people don't have that much time left. I could be dead tomorrow. Get hit by a bus. So can you. And these people are really, really pushing stuff. I know people like Steve Gregg. Well, this is, these are different views, and he thinks he can, go back and forth, but you can't. I've talked to Steve Gregg. I listened to Steve Gregg. I called his radio show before years ago. I know exactly what he's doing. He does the same thing that the James Tabor guys does. He tells you a certain thing, but it doesn't tell you anything else. He just shows you and presents you what he wants to present you. When something else comes up, he just kind of, some people believe this, blah, 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 and then they move on. Or he mumbles up under his lips. He's done that a couple times, or one time in Luke 21, because it's saying things that are just kryptonite. And there are actually churches I've heard before, like, well, we don't believe in the book of Luke, or this chapter in the book of Luke, or something. I can't remember what it was, but they just, well, this verse in Luke, that was probably added by the Catholics. We don't believe that they're saying that, you can't do that. You have to take the whole thing in and read it for what it is. Take off your rose-colored Catholic glasses, your Steve Gregg glasses, your James Tabor glasses, and read it. Read the book. Even in English, it makes sense. I know people that are doctors and just engineers and pilots and bookworms. I mean, I know a couple people that just can read a book in like an hour and understand every single thing that they've written. And they don't get it. How could you not get it? How could you not see? How could you not see it? How could you not see that when he makes a statement and then makes this statement, generation, that there's still something left after it? How could you not see in 40 and 41 that these are first century people he's talking to? How could you not see that? How could you read this and not understand? If you're a stupid idiot like me, who's been hit in the head like 100 times, I get it, but I've had to read it over and over and over and over again. So read it over and over and over again. Because it doesn't make sense the way it's being presented. I haven't found one, except those preterists, but the explanation for it is up their own ass. They don't know what they're talking about. Well, it's fulfilled. Hallelujah. And that's basically it. They don't have an answer. They don't know why. Because they're not reading it either. No one actually reads this book. It's amazing. They read books about this. Oh, I read a book about Steve Gregg. Oh, I read a book, Elaine Pagels. Oh, I read that book from James Tabor. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Are you of James Tabor? Are you of Steve Grigg or are you of Christ? As Paul said. Remember that? Are you a Christian or are you a disciple of Christ? Are you a Baptist or are you a disciple of Christ? Because there's only one definition of a disciple of Christ. I know it's hard to get this information, but it's not hard when you ask the right person. And that person is God. And it doesn't sound like the majority of people are listening to what he's saying. They're listening to what their preacher says. They're not putting any effort into it whatsoever. Yet they are. They're reading books, they're studying. People dedicate their entire lives to the study of the New Testament, and they are all wrong. James Tabor is the least wrong, but he still screws it up, just like the preterists do. What's the point? And Steve Grigg, he is good. He knows his stuff. But when you're only 98%, it's not good enough. Especially when that 2% is something you knowingly are denying. You know it's the truth, but it's going to screw you up. It's going to screw up your ministry. It's going to cost you money. You're going to have to go out and get a real job, whatever it is. So be it. I don't have a church. I'll never have a church. I don't want a church because I don't want you to look at me. This is what I found through years of study. Wasn't that long. I think I started reading the Bible when I was 42. Now I'm 46. That's 4 years. Never read it before that. Never went to church. Lucky me. No one put me through all the crap. Like my mom had to. She hates the church. Hates her dad. Hates everyone. So do her sisters. Sometimes. Not all of them. And there's millions of them out there. Just like them. Where do you think all these liberals come from? The church. And what was it? What was it for? For Jesus? No. For God? No. For that individual. He gets up there and he gets a big erection, a big ego erection, and it's just a big orgy in there, and hallelujah. What's that? Come out. You're at the spout where the spirit comes out, or all this nonsense, all this church crap that just makes people want to jump off a building. I never even went to church, and it's obnoxious when people talk like that. I understand it's a culture, but it's a false culture. It's a lie. But that's where you are at right now. That's what you're facing. You're wrong. You're not that far away, too. That's the other thing. These people, like a Steve Grigg, take anyone, the Pope. You read the Bible, you know what's in there. You know who Matthew and Mark and Luke are. You're not that far away. All right, they told you to make a right turn. You made a right turn. Okay. So make another right and another right. Get back on the road. Go down the blocks, a couple blocks, and make a left like you're supposed to. Easy. But you won't do it. And that's what will condemn you. That is what will condemn you. You know better, like a Steve Grigg, and you don't do it. It is too late for him. Even if he changes his mind and says, oh, I had a rev, I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to have a rev. It doesn't work that way. The damage is done. You cannot go back. But everyone, including him, should at least come out with it now before you do more damage. I doubt anyone's really going to still be listening at this point. especially him, Steve Gregg, or anyone else. You know what I'm talking about if you are listening. All of you do. You like things the way they are. That's not what this is about. Are you going to do what's right? Or are you going to just continue to do what you're doing because it's comfortable? You get to send me messages on the YouTube and swear up and down it's this way and you're wrong. You're just going to look stupid, just like that one guy did. He's a nice guy. He didn't respond to me anymore after I told him basically what I'm telling you. He'll never get it. I assume it's a guy. He'd be looking right at it. Just like those Pharisees, staring right at Jesus, staring right in his face, looking right into his eyes. The guy you've been waiting for generations. The Messiah, the Great One, the Lord of Lords. Right in front of you and you don't even see him. And not only do you see him, but you hate him, he pisses you off, and you want to kill him. And if Jesus came back right now, guess what? It'd be the Christians that kill him all over again. They would crucify him. Maybe they plant child porn on his iPhone. I don't know. But they'll crucify him. They'll get him out of the way. And they will kill him if they have to. His own people. Because they don't recognize him. They don't recognize what he's saying. Oops. By the time you realize that, it will be too late. You're never going to be right. It's not about being right. It's not about being correct. It's about giving up and saying, who am I and what am I here for? I'm here to follow God and what God wants. And that's what I'm going to do. So turn to him and tell him, I want to do what you want me to do, not what I want you to do. Maybe you've been in that church for so long and listened to those people for so long so that you can now tell the difference between what they said and what the Gospels are saying. You have this technology just like I do. It's not great. I actually canceled my membership a little while ago because it sucks, especially on a Friday night. God, the thing is just like full retard on Friday nights. I don't know. I think it's just a capacity thing or something. It's not great. But it's not my go-to. I already know this stuff. I'm just verifying what I know. I'm having it check my work to see if I'm wrong or something. We still disagree about Parlam Bono. But for the most part, I'm getting it. And it does not disagree with me. That's where you should be. You should program to say, tell me what it says based on the way it's written. What does it say? And then add the context. What's a denarius? What's a proselyte? Factually. Where's Capernaum? What's the history of Capernaum? What's the link to the Old Testament? Blah, 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 blah. All the information is there. Even if you don't have it, God will provide it for you. You'll watch this video. You'll watch someone else's video. You'll go for a walk and meet some guy. Or some gal. Or a dog. I don't think a dog's going to talk to you. But you'll figure it out. Because you asked. And what do you get when you ask? You get an answer. It actually says that. Remember? You have the greatest teacher of all time. The guy who created everything is your teacher. But you don't realize that he's here. You don't recognize his kingdom is here. You remember, ado, perceive? The replacement for the temple is not something you can see. It's here. This is God's realm. Read this thing and read just read Luke. Okay? Start with that and pray. You'll get it. Or you won't. but it will be your choice. Good luck.